All right, Matt. So I was talking to Michael and I realized something. The difference between me and Superman is that Superman has supervision and I require supervision.
Yeah. Agreed.
Good.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing pretty good, man.
Good. I just happened to look down and I noticed I had stuff on my shirt. I saw it in the camera and I'm like, all right, got to get rid of that. So,
We're going to have to start getting him a Graveyard Tales lint roller.
That would be cool. I do need one of those because I have a beagle that has white hair and I wear mostly black. So
yeah.
I always carry around a piece of my beagle with me. We want to say go check out the Podbelly Network at podbelly.com. You can find a list of shows that we're happy to be associated with, and you can find some tips and tricks on podcasting if you want to get into it. So go over there and check them out, podbelly.com. Also, while you're on the internet, looking up pictures of your two favorite podcasters, and also probably Matt and me too while you're there. But go over to patreon.com/graveyard tales. You can sign up to become a patron, and we have a ton of bonus episodes that you can go over there and check out. We've got, it runs the gamut of topics. And for our $10 a month patrons, we do a second show called Side Quest, where it's me and Matt. Basically, we're trying to mess with the other one, whether
for the most part,
make them laugh, freak them out. But it also gets into personal stuff. Like if we go on vacation, we'll talk about our vacations on there. We'll tell you about stuff that happened in our daily lives that we might not talk about on other things. And that's for our $10 a month patrons. But everybody gets bonus episodes.
Yep. It's, like we said, there's a huge catalog of bonus content, something for everybody. And it just, we can't even begin to go into all the different topics we've covered.
No.
We've covered so many that are outside of what you normally hear on Graveyard Tales. So check it out.
Right. And you can copy the RSS feed into your podcatcher and listen to us there. So you can get all the bonus episodes in your regular podcatcher. You don't have to go to the website once you sign up. You don't have to go to the website to keep listening to it. But Matt, that's all I've got for housekeeping. So why don't you tell us, what are we talking about tonight, brother?
All right. So I didn't realize that this was a thing. Haunted distilleries.
Right.
And doing the research for tonight's show, I found out that there's a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I was like, there's enough haunted distilleries that it's actually a category when you look up different haunted places.
Right.
And not just a few. So,
we'll have to do more.
There's a bunch. And we're going to look at one tonight. And this one, we're going to head out to North Carolina and we're going to look at the Southern Grace Distillery in, I just had Mount Pleasant, North Carolina. Now, why pick this one? Well, the history of the property that they're on is different than any other distillery around. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine that a business would go, oh, well, it's kind of like up here. We've got a Mexican restaurant that's in an old Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
you can look at it and tell that it's an old Pizza Hut building.
Yep.
Okay.
There's
a different color paint and some, decorations on the inside. Bang. It's a Mexican restaurant.
Yep.
But you always can tell it used to be a Pizza Hut.
Yep. Up there close to the airport, y'all got it's a Irish pub that used to be a funeral home.
And you can tell.
Yeah, I love the food there.
It is a great place. I've been there, 2 or 3 times. Yeah, it's a really cool place.
Their Scotch eggs, mwah, chef's kiss.
Man, yeah, it's fantastic. It's the best thing there, I think. But for the Southern Grace Distillery, their property used to be a prison.
Yep. Yep. Believe it or not.
I mean, you take over an old prison and you make whiskey there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm on board.
Right.
So let's talk about the history of how this, and it didn't stop being a prison that long ago. I was shocked.
Yeah. Yeah. It was fairly recent. Yeah.
All right. So I've teased it enough. So let's get into it, Adam. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about the history of Southern Grace Distillery.
All right. So as we always say, go check our sources down at the bottom of the show notes. You can find where we found all this information. We get information from people who have actually been to these places that Matt and I can't get to. So the credit has to go to them. So go down in the show notes, check them out, check out their original articles and all that stuff. But like Matt said, the Southern Grace Distillery is located in Mount Pleasant, North Carolina, in Cabarrus County. It's halfway between Salisbury and Charlotte. Now, the distillery, as we were talking about, doesn't have the expected history of a distillery.
Right.
You would think, well, they bought land because there was a nice spring on there and they wanted to make their whiskey and bourbon out of this wonderful spring water that came from there. But no, building and the land started life as something totally different.
Yeah.
Now, the compound that this distillery is in originally opened in 1929 as Mount Pleasant Prison. It remained in operation until it was shut down before I say it, Matt, what would you have guessed originally? Like, without, take out what you've read, but what did you initially think when you said, oh, okay, this used to be a prison, but it's now a distillery? When did you think it closed down?
Oh, yeah, probably sometime like in the 30s or 40s.
Yeah, I was thinking 60s, 70s.
The 60s at the latest.
Yeah, yeah. I would have gone 70s at the latest. No, it remained in operation until 2011.
Yeah.
It was a prison 13 years ago.
That just seems so odd, that even the property would be available to purchase. This soon. Yeah. After something like that,
right?
That the city hadn't, allocated it for something else,
or that the city had said, well, there's been some crazy beep that's happened here, so we need to tear this building down and do something else. But no, now I'll get into talking about it more here in a second, but because of Prohibition that started in the 1920s and other laws that the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms put forth after Prohibition, this prison housed numerous illegal moonshiners and bootleggers as part of its population.
Yeah.
So just let that sink in. You've got a distillery in a prison where people got put in for having distilleries.
Right.
That is, it's comical, but also amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the most ironic thing you can imagine.
Yep.
Hey, I was in jail for what you're doing.
Right. Right.
where you're doing it. I was in jail for what you're doing.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right. You're brewing this in the cell that I was in.
Yeah, exactly.
But the Mount Pleasant prison, because of that, it kind of gets called bootleggers prison a lot. You'll see it as bootleggers prison, which is a great name for a prison, but that's because it was mostly bootleggers, moonshiners, stuff like that.
Well, you look at where it is in North Carolina, and the mountains there, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, all that,
Kentucky.
It is full. It was full of moonshiners.
Yep.
I mean, just full, because it wasn't easy to find them. I mean, the revenuers that hunted these guys down, I mean, they weren't just like, okay, well, we're just going to go up here and knock out a few of these stills. Nope. I mean, these people were hidden, and they were in places that were hard to reach. So these guys had to work hard to find these stills. That's why they were all there.
Right.
So it makes sense that a bootlegger's prison would be right there in North Carolina.
Right. Right. And, if you have family lineage from North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, those areas that span into, the 1920s and further back, you probably had a bootlegger in your family.
Yeah, most likely.
Whether they sold it or whether they just made it for themselves.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those stills were just me and my family,
Yeah. Yeah.
The government took away my liquor so I can make my own. I already have a farm growing corn, so I'm just going to allocate part of this crop to liquor, and the rest of it I can sell, and that's my money laundering right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember the show The Waltons?
Kind of, yeah.
The two sisters, that talked about they made their dad's recipe.
Oh, yeah.
They was like, oh, he's coming up for the recipe. That's what it was.
Yep. Yep. Now, one of the well-known cases of people that went to this bootlegger's prison was Red Roland. He was known in the 50s for owning a monkey that would do a trick and then tilt its hat, wanting tips. So one of those guys. But Roland was also a bootlegger, and the Cabarrus County Sheriff eventually sent a squad to his home to seize his, quote, white lightning that he made and arrest him. Well, the cops couldn't locate the distillery, but they arrested Roland because his pet monkey grabbed a handful of cash out of a hiding place and just was showing, look, we got money, like a stupid monkey. Well, Roland convinced the judge that the cash was the monkey's earnings. So he wasn't prosecuted for that instance. But, unfortunately, he was arrested later for another offense and tried before a less agreeable judge. So that resulted in a conviction. Well, Roland did manage to take some comfort in being confined to the Cabarrus County Correctional Center, it said, because it happened to be located across the street from where he lived.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah.
Bootlegger lives across the street from the jail.
Yeah, and he can look out and see his home, and he knows exactly where his still is.
Looks okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
They still haven't found the still. I'd see. Now, for many, many years, there were between 200 and 400 inmates that were housed at a time in the facility, but the facility was only designated for 250 people. So, as always,
it doesn't matter. I mean, every prison we talk about became overcrowded at some point.
Sure.
I mean, all of them did.
Yeah. Even the ones now, I can guarantee you, are overcrowded.
It's a problem.
There's more standards now, so it's a little tighter ship is ran. But if you go back, to the 50s and before, the 60s and before, there wasn't that strict rules and regulations on prisons, and they just crammed them in there. 5-6 men to a cell, you know.
Not to go off on too much of a tangent, but because of this, I have always thought that, non-violent offenders, okay, somebody's in there for, simple possession or, something, they burgled somebody's, shed or something like that. But I think we should embrace the unusual means of incarceration instead of just slamming everybody into these buildings, locking them up, as punishment. I mean, we got the technology. Like, I can put a collar on my dog and I can keep him from leaving my yard.
Valid point.
Why can't we do that? I mean, I get it. We've already got these, the GPS tracking bracelets, and all this stuff. We've already got that technology. Just take it a step further,
Mm-hmm.
Shock the living crap out of these guys if they leave their yard,
Yep.
Surely we can figure out a way to keep these people at home,
Yep.
and not have to.
Geofencing is a thing for a reason, Like you said, we do it for the dogs. I mean, you can't do it for prisoners.
We're not doing it for the, the hardened guys, the multiple offenders, murderers, and all those people. No, lock them up. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But these other guys, they can just, we're going to lock you in your own house.
Yeah.
We're going to lock you in your mother-in-law's house.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Whatever, relative they hate the most.
Yeah.
That's the one they had to go live with.
Yeah. Some kid that they used to beat them up when they were in like grade school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You get to live with this guy.
Yep. Well, because of this inadequate space and they didn't have the way to maintain, upgrades for the prison and stuff, that's the reason that they closed it in 2011. Had they not had all these issues, it probably would still be a prison today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But they didn't have the ability to upkeep it and make the conditions better and put the necessary space in it. They couldn't just keep building on. But after North Carolina passed a prison reform bill in 1925, which outlawed inhumane practices like flogging and beating prisoners, the state built regional prisons like this one. Well, despite the reforms, many of the early prisoners still faced, harsh treatments, like they were thrown in the hot box, which is, we've talked about a lot. I don't think we've talked about hot boxes with any other prisons, but it's a windowless isolation shed.
Yeah.
And this one actually had a fired furnace
Yeah.
and no fresh air vents. So it was literally a hot box.
Right.
They put you in there in the summer and fire up this furnace.
Yeah.
And you had to sit there and sweat and die.
And I was watching a show where Emily Burkhart, who runs the distillery now, she was saying that, inside this thing, it would get, 115 degrees in the summer just in there.
Yep.
And now we're going to start a fire.
Yep. Upwards of 200 plus.
That's brutal, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like, this is the worst sauna ever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because it's not even relaxing like a sauna. You're just in there and
I'm hot,
Mm-hmm.
This sucks.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be bad though if it had the adverse effects for the guards? The guy comes out sculpted and ripped.
Oh yeah.
He just melted off his body fat and then he fights his way out.
Yeah.
Obviously
that's
that only happens in cartoons, but that's where my head went.
Yeah.
My head went to the cartoon thing. So I mentioned prohibition, and prohibition being what put most of these men in this prison. So let's look at what prohibition is. We've talked about a lot of prisons, but we've never actually talked about prohibition. I think this is the first time it would have fit in any of our episodes.
Yeah.
I don't think it. So happy days. We get to talk about something new. Now the Prohibition era, it began in 1920 when the 18th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was put in place, and it banned the manufacture, transportation, and sale of, quote, intoxicating liquors. And it went into effect because of the passage of the Volstead Act, which I'll also talk about. But despite this new legislation, prohibition was difficult to enforce. Obviously. But it increased the illegal production and sale of liquor, which was known as bootlegging, and the proliferation of speakeasies, so illegal drinking spots, and the accompanying rise of gang violence and organized crime, all, kind of took flight because of this one act, and it led to waning support for prohibition by the end of the 1920s. It's like I've said before, anything that you make illegal, people are going to start doing more, and then you're just going to have a crime wave.
Right.
Because people aren't going to stop doing this, whatever, alcohol. People are not going to stop drinking alcohol just because you say, okay, it's illegal now. All you do is then push that alcohol into the hands of criminals, and the criminals then control it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, especially when you're talking about the 1920s, you think about how long has alcohol been around at that point?
Since the dawn of humanity.
Yeah. It's been a thing.
Since somebody set some grain to the side in some water and went, oh, hey, this ferments and makes an intoxicating liquor.
Yeah, that's right. But, you've gotten to the point where it is ingrained in society. And now you're going to make it illegal.
Right.
You might as well make like sex illegal. It's part of life at this point.
Right.
You can't stop it. So you just, all prohibition did was cause a lot more problems.
Yep. And caused the mob and the mafia that you didn't like to become more powerful, because now people are going to them instead of legal means to get their alcohol. So it was a boon for the mafia.
Oh, yeah.
It was big time. Now, in early 1933, Congress adopted a resolution which proposed a 21st Amendment to the Constitution that would repeal the 18th Amendment. So the 21st Amendment was ratified on December 5th, 1933, ending prohibition. But think about 13 years is a long time. My son has been alive for 13 years.
Yeah, it is.
That's a long time. That's how long it took from the enacting of the 18th Amendment till they could ratify it. And now liquor is not illegal anymore.
Can you imagine the hangovers on December 6th?
Oh, my Lord. Yeah.
All the people that tried to be law-abiding citizens were like, give me a drink,
Yep. Finally. Drink. They're out there on the street corners drink. It's Mardi Gras for like a week straight. It's just everybody drunk out on the street corners day and night.
Yeah. There's no work getting done, nothing.
No. All of the politicians, they're like, oh, hey, I can actually drink in public now and people can't say anything.
Yeah.
I don't have to drink. There are stories that have come out of politicians, high-ranking politicians that went and bought their liquor from the mob.
Oh, yeah.
So that they could have it.
Yeah, that's right.
It's all these people that thought it was a stupid idea in the first place that are like, I'm going to drink anyway.
What are they going to do?
I just can't tell Phil at the office tomorrow that I was drunk as a skunk last night. Now, I mentioned the Volstead Act. Well, in 1917, after the United States entered World War I, Woodrow Wilson instituted a temporary wartime prohibition in order to save grain for producing food. So in World War I, Woodrow Wilson said, we can't be making liquor because we got to save this grain to feed the country.
Mm-hmm.
So he had decent thoughts at the time. Probably didn't go about it the right way, but he had a decent thought. You know, we need to save this for sending to the troops and for feeding you guys at home. Now, that same year, Congress submitted the 18th Amendment, which banned the manufacture, transportation, and sale of liquor for state ratification. Well, through Congress, though Congress had stipulated a 7-year time limit for this process, the amendment actually received support for the necessary 3/4 of the U.S. states in only 11 months. So Congress said, okay, over a 7-year time period.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody went, no, we got it done in 11 months. So it was ratified on January 16th, 1919, and the 18th Amendment went into effect 1 year later, so 1920, by which time no fewer than 33 states had already enacted their own prohibition legislation. In October of 1919, Congress put forth the National Prohibition Act, which provided guidelines for the federal enforcement of prohibition. It was championed by Representative Andrew Volstead of Minnesota, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, and the legislation was more commonly known as the Volstead Act because of him. Now, like I said, the illegal manufacturing and sale of liquor, which is known as bootlegging, it went on throughout the decades, although the operation of speakeasies, which, you know, nightclubs, bars that are just hidden, and the smuggling of alcohol across state lines and the informal production of liquor, moonshining, or bathtub gin, as they call it, were all done in private homes. Now, addition to the Prohibition era, it encouraged the rise of criminal activity, like I said, associated with bootlegging. So the most notorious example was the Chicago gangster Al Capone. Now, he earned apparently $60 million annually from bootleg operations and speakeasies.
Dang.
In the 20s.
You think about in the 20s how much $60 million was.
Yeah.
Then they wondered how, why did it take so long to... I'll tell you why. Because if you've got $60 million in the 20s, you can pretty much do whatever you want.
Yep. And he probably wanted the Prohibition Act to stay in place because he was making so much money off of it.
Right. Yeah.
Now, these illegal operations, they fueled the rise in gang violence, including the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in Chicago in 1929, which they say several men dressed as policemen and believed to be associated with Capone shot and killed a group of men in an enemy gang. So all of this stuff was happening during that time. People were getting thrown into the bootleggers' prison and filling up the walls to capacity. And then they shut it down in 2011, which again seems like a long time for it to be running. But then in 2014, so 3 years after it was shut down, North Carolina natives Leanne Powell and Thomas Thacker moved into the facility and they founded Southern Grace Distilleries. Well, in 2019, Leanne passed away, but the small staff that runs a company, they say they work hard every day to keep Leanne's vision alive. Now, the distillery, originally housed in the Warren Coleman Mill on Main Street, moved into the abandoned state prison in Mount Pleasant, North Carolina, over Labor Day weekend in 2016. So in order to expand production, they said, to include bourbon. So they already had a distillery, but they moved it into this abandoned prison so that they could expand their production levels. Now, Southern Grace converted the 1929 prison dorm and the solitary confinement, or the hot box, into barrel houses where they age their conviction straight bourbon whiskey. I love that name.
Yeah.
It's perfect for where it's aged and all this. Now, Southern Grace Distillery uses sonic aging on their bourbon. Now, you probably know what this is, Matt, but if you don't, sonic aging uses really loud music to vibrate the bourbon in the barrels so that it comes into contact with the wood more frequently and it absorbs the flavors of the charred oak of the barrels.
Right.
So they say you can hear loud, quote, concert volume rock playing inside the aging room when you visit. And they say they use Led Zeppelin when they're aging their bourbon. So if you're on the premises while they've got barrels aging, you can hear Led Zeppelin blasting from the aging room. And if you don't know bourbon whiskey, any aged liquor, they put it in a barrel. They char the wood of the barrel, and then they put the liquor in the barrel. Well, over time, the solvents in the liquor draw out the tannins and stuff in the wood, which give it the color and that flavor. And the longer you age it, the more of those comes out, and to me, the better it tastes. But anyway, apparently, from what I looked up, this sonic aging can speed up that process. So you can get more flavor, more tannins out, more aging in a shorter amount of time. I actually have a bottle of Metallica's bourbon that was sonically aged, and Metallica obviously plays Metallica when they age their bourbon.
They play smooth jazz.
Right. They play Kenny G to age their Metallica bourbon. But I like it. To me, Metallica bourbon is a little bit on the harsh side, but I'm kind of a snob and I like what I like. It's good. It tastes great, but it's a little bit harsh. But I will be trying some of this conviction straight bourbon soon. Yeah. I should have tried it before we did this. I just didn't have time.
Well, I tried to find it. I don't have anywhere near me that has it.
Yeah. That's the problem.
And I don't have like a great beverage warehouse near me. But I do have a really nice liquor store right down the road, and 9 times out of 10, if you're looking for it, they probably have it. But the cool thing about them is if they don't have it, they'll get it if you ask them. So
the guy up at the end of the road where I get my liquor is the same way. Every time I go in and if I'm looking for something new, he goes, "What you want? I order it for you." I'm like, "All right." And I've done it before.
Oh yeah. Hendrix had a limited edition gin that came out a few years ago. And I went in because I knew they sold Hendrix, and they had at one time at least 1 or 2 of their limited batch. And I asked him about this one, and he was like, "Okay." He's like, "Write it down." So I wrote it down. I went in there 2 weeks later. They had it.
Nice.
I was like, man, I mean, you can't ask for better than that. So.
Yep. I told this guy one that I was looking for, and he goes, "I will look into it." And then I got it from somewhere else because I found it somewhere else, but went back in there and he actually had it stocked. Like he started selling it. He didn't just order me one. He ordered the whole thing. And I'm like, well, that's cool.
On the shelf. I mean, so it's pretty cool. Anyway, we'll just give a review of our favorite liquor stores that are near us.
There you go.
And none of y'all.
Yeah. There you go. But to end my part, Southern Grace Distillery, they say, quote, "This isn't a cutesy thing for us. It's a vital part of having our whiskey come out the way we want it to."
Yeah.
So I just think it's awesome that not only are they in a prison, but they use this sonic aging with freaking Led Zeppelin to aid their conviction straight bourbon. It's really cool.
Look, anything that helps get the liquor into the wood and back out, that breathing,
ships,
the ships. Yeah, that's what I was going to do. Yeah. They put it on a boat and, it goes out to sea, and the rocking motion back and forth helps to push that whiskey into the wood, and where it picks up all those critical tannins and color and flavors and everything. So it does make a difference. I know there's a lot that are out now that advertise that aged on ships, and it's pretty cool. But as Adam mentioned, the founder, Leanne Powell, she passed away in 2019. But she was quoted talking about the activity that goes on, at the distillery. And Leanne had said people especially have reported feeling kind of ill at ease in one of the dorm bathrooms. They feel like something isn't right in there. And we've all had that experience.
Yeah, you get uneasy in areas just because of the atmosphere.
Yeah. She says, "I've had at least a dozen people tell me they felt upset or anxious while in that bathroom." And, that you get a dozen people that say that, it's like, well, if the toilet has been flushed, then there's no other reason for you to feel that way.
Yeah. But I get uneasy going in my son's bathroom, but that's a whole nother reason.
She said one guy was out here welding one night and swore he saw somebody in here. And they later found out that someone had actually hung themselves in solitary confinement. Yeah.
I was going to say that bathroom probably had some stuff going on when it was.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I'm sure of it. But she says, people tell us, they come in, that when they visit, they tell us that they feel those presence. Now, according to Emily Burkhart, who is the director of tourism for the Southern Grace Distillery, as I mentioned her earlier, she says several inmates met violent ends while they were incarcerated in the prison, either by suicide or other methods. And she brings up, the prisoner that hung himself in confinement cell 4. And they believe that the spirit has been heard by several visitors and employees. Another inmate was murdered in the bathroom of the largest campus housing building, which is currently used for barrel storage.
See, there you go.
So what if your spirits came with spirits? You open up a bottle and now your house is haunted.
Yeah, it comes out.
I mean, wouldn't that be weird? You buy a bottle of this and you get it, you're enjoying it, and next thing you know, stuff's moving around in your house. You're hearing doors close, and you get disembodied voices.
You get a letter in the mail from the distiller not too much later that says, "Well, here is Jim. Hope you enjoyed Jim.
Yeah,
he caused problems here, so we put him in your bottle."
That's right. Yeah, we had him in this barrel, and you got him. Yeah, so have fun.
You couldn't have warned me before I opened it. Then, huh?
Jim likes to watch you while you sleep.
Yeah. You feel that tickling on your feet.
Just saying that would be enough to be like, oh, hell,
Yeah, it's like Jim says you smell different when you're asleep.
Yeah. Especially after you've been drinking. Out during a private investigation by First in Fright Paranormal. That's to be in North Carolina and you First in Fright. If you know that North Carolina North Carolina license plate say first in flight.
Yeah.
Yeah. This
Clever.
Ryan Burleson, who is the group's founder.
Clever, Ryan. Clever.
Yeah, I like it. He stated that the most spiritually active area they encountered was around the solitary confinement cells, which is an area that you can tour. Now, the paranormal research team that's from Hickory, North Carolina, captured several ghostly voices through their handheld spirit box. And in one interesting occurrence, a team member named Melanie Dawn Adams was walking away from the jail cells when the voices supposedly called her back.
Weird.
Don't go.
Yep.
Come back. Have another drink. Now, according to Ryan Burleson, the SLS camera, the Xbox camera thing that shows the stick figures.
Yep.
It detected both adult and child-size entities in the Whiskey Prison gift shop.
No thanks.
Whiskey Prison. That's another cool name.
Yeah, I like that one.
I like it. That you see them in the videos. They all got these T-shirts on that say Whiskey Prison. That's pretty cool. I like it too. Yeah,
I gotta get me a T-shirt.
You guys are good at naming stuff in North Carolina.
Yep. I got to get me a Whiskey Prison T-shirt.
But she says Ryan said several of the members of the team actually witnessed this. My thing is why would there be child-sized spirits here?
Right.
There's nothing about this says children. Okay. It was a prison. It's a distillery. There really shouldn't be any kid ghosts here, but maybe there are.
Yep.
Now, in one of the two videos of this particular investigation, there's a deep male voice that clearly says, "Be careful." Now, several other voices could be heard numerous times, including that of a female. Now, no one knows the identity of the woman, but the female voice has been heard frequently by paranormal investigators and employees. Again, this place wasn't a distillery until 2014. And, of course, they employ several ladies, but the prison shouldn't have had any female inmates.
Or
no
kids.
Female guards. Yeah, no kids. So where would this female spirit come from?
Right.
I don't know, maybe they're pulling them in from around. You've got that much energy to hold on to some spirits there. You might be able to pull a few, just drawn to that energy. Now, interestingly enough, the distillery states on their website that the nighttime tour guide is also a paranormal investigator. So while I was watching a video of the tour, the tour guide investigator, Ben Mabry, they also call him Benny, used a variety of ghost hunting equipment, which kind of brings a unique aspect to the tour. This is not one of those, the nighttime tour is not just this is solitary confinement. They say that you hear some voices and some screams, and some people have seen a shot. No, he's actually toting around some equipment where you can actually experience getting some evidence of the hauntings that go on there, which I think is pretty cool. Adam and I have done something similar to this, and it does make it, at least for me, and I love hearing the history and everything too, but it does make it a little bit more of a ghost tour to have that ghost hunt aspect to it. So I like that. Now, I watched him use dowsing rods to confirm which spirits were active that night. So he's out there like calling the roll of, Jim and Tom and all these. And so Ben was asking, he's holding the dowsing rods and you're watching them kind of cross to confirm that this one was there, go apart. Of course, I'm watching nothing the whole time but his hands, because I am Look, y'all know I love to believe this stuff, but when it comes to dowsing rods, I have seen this stuff work, okay? But I am always skeptical of somebody fiddling with it, moving their hands,
Sure.
a little bit of sleight of hand, making it can't be that hard to make
Right.
those rods cross or pull apart just with the slightest movement. So the whole time I'm just staring at this guy's hands, trying to tell if he's moving it. I couldn't see it on the video that his hands were moving. So maybe at least that is legit. I always think that if you pull out something like that on a ghost tour, you're feeding in to what these people want.
Mhm.
They want an experience. They want to they want to feel something, sense something, see something. So you're at least
It's
putting it
instant
in their head that
gratification.
something's there. Yeah.
Mhm.
I lost my spot. Okay. Now, Ben says that there are several spirits lingering around the old prison turned distillery. One in particular is named Lizzie. Now, Ben says that when you call for Lizzie, you can hear her giggle.
Hmm.
And you can on this particular video, they played kind of the EVP of Lizzie, and you hear it. You hear the giggle. Now Lizzie obviously is a young girl, so maybe she's the spirit that people have seen on the SLS camera, the child size spirit. I don't know, what is she doing there. I have no idea. Joe is another spirit that's typically encountered around the solitary confinement area. But one interesting event occurred during an interview with the local news. Ben placed a flashlight in one of the barrel rooms. Okay, the old flashlight experiment.
Yep.
Now, as he steps away, he calls for a spirit named Donovan. Now, as soon as the name is called, the flashlight turns on. And, I'm thinking, neat trick, I mean, we've talked a lot about how that can be manipulated, or the environment can cause it to do that. But Donovan wasn't done with just turning the flashlight on. The flashlight continued to turn on and off whenever Ben requested that Donovan do so, in broad daylight with a news crew.
Interesting.
My thing is if he was gonna fabricate this or just really pump it up for the news, that takes some balls.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the local news. We're here in broad daylight. You're gonna pull some kind of fast one over on a news crew.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're really, you got some cojones if you're going to try that, because everybody's gonna be like, man, it's fake.
Yep.
The other thing, like
heavily scrutinized.
Yeah, and skeptics would absolutely say this is just a trick, and it's designed to show off for the cameras to generate some visitors. But the LEDs in the flashlight didn't just turn on and off; they would slowly flicker, and they would get brighter and then dimmer.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, eventually turning on to full brightness, but not until Ben told Donovan to turn the flashlight all the way on, and then Ben would open the cell door.
Yeah.
Which, makes me think of another aspect of this. Why would you have to open the cell door for a spirit? Unless, because if this was a spirit of a prisoner, their spirit feels trapped inside there.
I think that's what it is.
And wouldn't come out.
Yeah.
Or even,
they might
that would be an aspect of the haunting. Yeah.
They might actually be trapped in that room.
Yeah. I mean, that, by a physical object.
Mm-hmm.
But you would think of a spirit or a ghost being able to just pass right through. but maybe not.
Some unseen
because
force.
of what they were in life. Yeah.
Right. 100%. We don't understand the incorporeal.
Right.
So why would we say, oh, well, this is BS because, he wouldn't need us to open the door.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
Unseen rules, regulations, some unseen force that, like you said, because he was a prisoner in life, now he's stuck in this. Maybe it's part of his never-ending torment.
Yeah. It's in chapter 74 of the handbook for the recently deceased.
Yep, exactly. People just don't read that far. That's the problem.
Right. But all of Ben's experiences haven't been so casual. He recalls one of his first encounters while he was sweeping out one of the old inmate showers, where he was struck in the head. So kind of shocked and stunned at what had just happened, he immediately felt a burning sensation along his side. So Ben says he walked out of the showers where another employee was working, and he pulled up his shirt asking if there was anything there. And the other employee told him that he had a large scratch going down his side. So the scratching we've heard before, that's not uncommon, but to actually be hit in the head, not by an object, not by something that was thrown, but by a force, actually striking him in the head.
Yep.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
And I mean, you feel tugged or pulled or pushed or whatever, but to actually feel like somebody just hit me in the head.
Yeah. Now, I heard Jason Hawes, you know who he is, right? He's the founder of TAPS. I heard him say something about the scratching and the hitting that I thought was interesting and hadn't thought about before.
Mm-hmm.
He said most people assume that if a spirit scratches you, they're evil, right? That's what everybody assumes. He said, think of it this way. This person is standing next to you and they're tapping you and you can't feel them. They're trying to get your attention. They're tapping you. They're tapping you. They're going to increase the power of what they're doing until you feel it. And sometimes it may take a smack in the back of the head or a scratch.
Yeah.
For all they want is you to acknowledge them.
Right.
They're probably not evil, but they've been sitting there going, Matt, you're talking to me. You're asking me to do something to prove I'm here. I'm trying.
Yeah.
And then finally it takes a scratch and then you go, oh, I feel it.
Yeah.
Well, they had to ramp up to that.
Yeah.
So just because you get scratched or hit doesn't necessarily mean that it's an evil spirit, and I hadn't thought about that until he said something. And I'm like, that makes a whole lot of sense. It could mean that they're evil, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's an evil presence.
Yeah. And Jason and the TAPS team have investigated, Southern Grace Distillery.
That's true. Yep.
And in 2022. So not that long ago.
Yeah, that's not long ago. And
it's pretty interesting. And the thing about it is, at the end, that Jason kind of said, there's a lot of activity going on here, but I don't think any of it is malevolent. It's just here. So I don't think there's any, there's not a safety hazard for being here, which was what Emily wanted to find out. She wanted to make sure that the employees knew and that she knew that they were safe, to come to work. It might be a little scary at times, but they're not going to get hurt. Nothing is going to, physically harm them, at least, not anything beyond a scratch or, feeling something hit you in the head.
And I appreciate the fact that he does that, because so many that do it professionally try to make everything out to be evil.
Yeah. Demonic in some fashion, which would be terrifying.
Right. But he's mostly, the things I've seen from him, he hasn't found that many, quote, evil things.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're there.
Yeah.
But he doesn't find evil in every location like some of them do, where the portal to hell is underneath your sofa.
So many damn portals to hell around, you know, man.
Everything's a portal to hell if you want it to be.
But you think about it, even if you are a skeptic, if you've had some weird things happen at your house or your place of business, and you have an investigator come in and they tell you that it's a demon, a demonic entity, look, I mean, you could be the most, stoic non-believer, and somebody tells you there's a demon there. That, I'm telling you,
get your hackles up a little bit.
You're going to be like, man, I wish he hadn't said that. You know?
Yep, because
even though you're like, else, and I would have been okay with it.
Yeah, I don't believe this, but dang, that's going to bother me at 1 a.m.
Yes, exactly. Now, back to Emily Burkhart. She reports that there have been shadow figures that have also been seen, and she has video footage of a shadow of a person in the atrium that appears to just disappear into a wall. Now, no one else was present at the time, and there was no other way that a solid person could have gotten out of that area. And so you can she actually shows that video to Jason and Steve from the TAPS team.
I like the term solid person.
Yeah, solid person.
A solid person. I mean, it's a great description. I just think it's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
Solid people and liquid people.
Yeah. Liquid gaseous people.
Gaseous people. Liquid people. Solid people. Frozen people.
Frozen people.
Natural progression in my brain. That's where
right.
Went.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what's come next.
Yeah.
But she also says that female visitors tend to get a little bit more attention, especially in the old prison cells.
I believe that.
So oftentimes women visiting the distillery will have the sense of someone sitting next to them while they're in the cells. And others have reported having their hair pulled. And now you're like, what do you know about having your hair pulled, Matt? I used to have hair, okay? I used to have hair.
He's had his back hair pulled before.
And, I mean, look, all of my daughters have long hair, okay? Amanda has long hair, at least right now. You would know the difference between your hair getting caught like in your jacket or your backpack or your purse or whatever, as opposed to something grabbing your hair and pulling it, even if it was gently. I mean, I just know that, a woman would be able to tell the difference, so for them to come out and go, something pulled my hair, then they know it was like this was not just the casual, oh, my hair got caught in my shirt or my, strapped to my backpack or something. No, something pulled it. But I think you would be able to tell.
Yep.
Now, Master Distiller Sebastian Correa recalls an incident shortly after the prison was converted to a distillery. He says that he and another employee were working and suddenly heard a woman screaming. Now, a quick search of the area revealed that they were the only two people on the property. Sebastian says that it wasn't long after that event that the other employee quit. Now, Emily also says that there is no record of any female inmates, so the potential identity of the female screamer is unknown. So again, there's no reason that, there would have been a living female there that they can find that would have caused, a female spirit to linger around. So
right.
It goes back to the, prisons pull a lot of negative energy.
Oh yeah.
And so we've seen this in other haunted locations. Negative energy it sometimes acts like a beacon.
Yep.
So, a lot of places that do have what appears to be demonic activity, there's really no reason for them to be, inhabited by a demonic entity. None.
Mm-hmm.
But yet there may be enough energy that it attracted a demon.
Right.
Because they, that, hey, there's a lot of energy here that I can
feed off. Yep.
Yeah. So, there's a chance that there's enough negative energy there that maybe it has pulled in other spirits, from, other areas around, Mount Pleasant. Who knows? Maybe through another dimension. I don't know. But it's interesting. And, the fact that this place is pretty active, when you listen to the employees, they have a small group. I mean, you look on their website, you can see their staff. It is a small group. It sure doesn't seem like these guys, were like, hey, I bet if we start saying our distillery is haunted, that's going to add an extra aspect to it. No, it just kind of seems like they figured this out after moving in. And again, you moved your business into an old prison that was a prison just a few years prior. So I think if you're, old prison, funeral home, those guys. Oh, this place, it's a nightclub, but it used to be a morgue. Oh, great.
Super.
Wonder if there's anything still hanging around,
Yeah.
But this place is really, really cool. And I'm with you. I would love to, try their conviction, is it bourbon? Is it conviction bourbon? Do they actually call it bourbon? Yep. It's hard to know because, you get outside of Kentucky, people get all snobby about calling it bourbon,
Right.
But I think this would be a cool place to visit. Definitely would want to try some of their product. But I mean, based on what I've seen, and I watched a lot of videos about this place because there's not a lot of written stories and experiences, but there's quite a few videos of paranormal investigations, tours. You can watch the Ghost Hunters episode. I think it's from season 15. I've got it. It'll be in the show notes, so you can go back and find that episode if you want. But it's really cool. Quite a bit of activity, but nothing that seems, that it's not like I said, it's not malevolent. It's not dangerous. They're not out to hurt. They're just kind of making themselves known. And as Adam said at the beginning, can you imagine being a bootlegger and imprisoned for it? And now where your spirit is stuck imprisoned, they're making whiskey right there in front of you.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if a few of them are going, man, y'all are doing that wrong.
Oh, they are. They're standing there going, that ain't the right recipe,
it's gonna
son.
Suck.
Yeah.
If y'all just do it this way,
mine was much smoother, much smoother, higher strength. You're not doing it right.
They just come up and float through a barrel. No, this ain't ready yet. This needs to go probably another 2 years.
Yep. That would be great.
Oh, Lordy mercy. But hey, Southern Grace Distilleries sounds pretty haunted. You ought to check it out if you're in that area, if you're going to be in the Mount Pleasant, North Carolina area. But as we always ask, what do you guys think?
Yep.
Maybe some of you guys have been there, heard of it. It's not been there a terribly long time, so it's not something that's just may not be on your radar. But if you're in that area, you ought to stop by and check it out. See if you get an experience. Take that cool nighttime tour with Ben Mabry. It looks like a really good time. But the best place to let us know what your experiences or your thoughts are on the Southern Grace Distillery is in our Facebook group. It's called The Graveyard. Thousands of people in there that are sharing great stories, sharing personal experiences, asking for help with, odd paranormal activities in their house. telling dad jokes, all that great stuff. Check it out. And when you're done there, you can go to our website, which is graveyardpodcast.com. And there you can listen to the show. You can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise, and you can become a patron. And as I said earlier, we've got a huge catalog of bonus material for you out there. Go and check it out. I think it's a great time to if you've been thinking about it, go ahead, pull the trigger. It really helps out what Adam and I are doing. We appreciate it tremendously, but you've got a lot of extra stuff that you can go and check out.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I've got for this place, man. It's pretty cool. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah. As soon as I saw this place, I was like, this would be right up Matt's alley.
That's right.
Is perfect.
Haunted bourbon. Send me a bottle. Maybe there'll be a ghost in it.
Spirited spirits.
Until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon.